Welcome to the podcast. This podcast is going to be entitled something like Let's Play This Out or Civil War or something. I don't know. But let's just say that they pull this again on us. Let's say they do all the same stuff they did last time in 2020. Not the riots. I mean, I guess we still got a couple months, but I don't think they want riots this time. Because their guy is in power. So they want it to seem all peaceful. So let's say they banish people from the polling places again. I don't mean to take votes or to cast votes, but I mean to count the votes. Right? There are so many stories of people going... Because you're supposed to have a Republican and a Democrat watch all the ballots be counted, especially the mail-in ballots. Maybe only the mail-in ballots. I don't know the whole process, but that's part of it. And because of COVID, they kicked a lot of those people out. And there's videos of people cheering when the Republican counter got kicked out. And if you think you're saving the country from Trump, then you could imagine people doing that. There's videos of that happened. Now, I can't prove it was all over the place, but I've seen it multiple times on the internet. Let's say they pause the counting again, right? That whole fiasco where they all paused the counting at the same time across multiple states, across a continent. If you don't think that's shady and that there's something going on there, you got to screw loose. You're telling me that 50 separate states who run their elections separately, all the battleground states anyway, pause their voting or their counting all at the same time? What? Even if it was close to the same time, maybe it wasn't the same instant. Come on. You have to admit that's crazy. Let's say they pull that crap again. Let's say they send everybody home. We're done counting for the night. Don't worry. We got the place locked up. Everything's fine. We're not going to do any shenanigans during the night. And then, what do you know, during the night is when we see all these votes spike. But I thought all those places went home. Well, not all of them, I guess. I mean, come on. We all saw it happen. Let's say they pull that again. Did you hear the one about the pipe that burst? There was a burst pipe, so they had to stop counting the votes. So everybody had to go home. There wasn't a pipe burst. That never happened. We found out later. That never happened. So obviously they kicked them all out. So what? Why would you invent that story? Let's say they threaten people with arrest who want to canvass the voter rolls to see what kind of holes are in the voter rolls. So when we go back and match the votes up, we can see where the vote count is way off. Remember Merrick Garland threatening to arrest anyone who tried to do that under some vote? I think they used the KKK law, the voter intimidation law, as if that's going to intimidate people from voting after the fact. They're just doing a vote canvass. Yeah, so Merrick Garland came out and threatened people in Arizona with jail time for trying to canvass the vote. Let's say they tell us over and over on election night, well, it's looking good for Trump right now. But remember, when all the mail-in ballots come in, they're going to be heavily for Biden. And so it's going to look totally different after that. Just wait for all the mail-in ballots. And we've all seen the chart of the huge spike when all the mail-in ballots supposedly got dumped into the system. Yeah, they're going to pull that crap again. Let's say they send out all kinds of mail-in ballots, even to those who didn't request them, even to people who already got absentee ballots who requested them for legitimate reasons. Let's say they get 2 or 3 ballots in the mail. You really think none of those are going to get cast? You really think none of those are going to get handed over to the anti-Hitler party and signed with a fake signature that they know won't really be checked against a real signature and then sent in and counted and put into the stream like all the other ballots that have no names on them once they're taken out of the absentee ballot envelope. I lived in a blue state in 2020. Every year I send away for a absentee ballot just because I don't want to go to the polling place on that day. I got another ballot in the mail after I sent in. So supposedly what's supposed to happen is if somebody votes twice, they'll figure it out. They'll know, and they'll throw that vote away. Yeah, right. You really believe that? When we're trying to stop Hitler here, when we're trying to stop Hitler from getting reelected, they're not going to throw any ballots away. Unless it comes from a deep red place in that state, which is where I lived. But I came from a Democrat city in that deep red state. So anyway, you really believe that? Let's say they allow people to turn in their ballots 2 or 3 or 4, or I think even a week late. So you can, let's say maybe you have people who are signing fake ballots, like in a frantic way, in an apartment kitchen somewhere where they were hired to do this. I'm just saying, maybe just I know it's crazy that might be happening. But let's say that. And then they sign them all they just check off the Biden box and they don't check off anyone else. There's a whole bunch of ballots like that where they just voted for the president and didn't vote for anyone else. That's super suspicious. There's also a case, I've seen the pictures where they had a stack of absentee ballots that were never folded. You have to fold them to put them in the envelope. And these ballots were flat, never folded. What is with that? Those are obviously not legit absentee ballots. Even I don't know. It seems like the mail-in ballot I got was like a fold-over postcard. I can't even remember. I just threw it away because I was like, I already voted. You think, let's say they get away with this again, having us trust the post office with all the ballots, that they won't toss ballots from heavily Republican areas, even though they're trying to stop Hitler from getting reelected. We trust that they won't do that. We trust them. With the entire election. Now, I guess you could say, well, why do you trust the old ladies at the ballot box place? Okay. Let's say they pull the ballot harvesting crap again, where people go to people's houses and say, hey, have you voted yet? All right, well, here's a ballot. Fill it out, and I'll take it. And I'll fill out the ballot for Aunt Flo. Here, Aunt Flo. Let's fill out your ballot here real quick. Okay, sign it. Okay, I'll see ya. Or they just take it and fill it out for them. They're not checking these signatures. Give me a break. They're not. Get out of here. They're not really doing that. You're paying somebody $8 an hour or whatever to check 100,000 signatures a day. They're not going to do it. They don't care. Even if they did, how are you really going to prove that somebody didn't sign that? And if you're trying to stop Hitler, yeah, I don't think you're going to look too hard. Ballot harvesting is a complete scam. How do you think they turned Orange County blue? Yeah, with ballot harvesting. Orange County, like the most Republican area in all of California. What do you know? It went blue. Huh? I guess they just hated Trump so bad. I mean, maybe that's true, but no. It's because, and they're congressmen. They elected Democratic congressmen. It's because of ballot harvesting, and ballot harvesting is a way to cheat. Let's be real. Let's say they allow those drop boxes all over the place, and they're completely unmonitored. Anybody can just come up and stuff the ballot box with like 1 million ballots that they filled out on their kitchen table and got paid $50 to go dump them somewhere, or whatever shenanigans were going on. Let's say they pull that crap again. So let's say they do all of that, which do we really think they're not going to? Why would they not do it again? Of course they're going to. Let's say they get away with it. Let's say on, November 5th or whatever, Trump's winning, but we hear all the same crap again. And during the night, a whole bunch of ballots pop up. They quote, find a whole bunch of ballots somewhere. And she starts to pull ahead in Phoenix, in Philadelphia, in Atlanta, in Vegas, in Detroit, in Madison, Wisconsin. And what do you know? All those Democratic states just happen to tip the balance by even just a little. Just a few thousand votes, what do you know? And she ends up pulling it out in all those states. Just enough to put her over the top, just like with Biden. And the next morning schmo, all the idiots at MSNBC, the rhinos at Fox, the communists at New York Times, all of a sudden, or not all of a sudden, but they're just like, well, I guess they just, it just worked out the same way again. Those mail-in ballots, man, they really worked out for the Democrats again. What do you know? And then all the rhinos on Newsmax and everywhere else start looking at us and saying, it's just because of Trump. Like they did in 2022, about 9 o'clock, Rick Santorum, he's on Newsmax, and he starts talking to all the MAGA people on Newsmax like, guys, you gotta admit it's because of Trump. And then they say, no, we've already adjudicated that whole, oh, come on. The last election was secure. This is making us look stupid. And then DeSantis and whatever her name, I can't even remember her name right now. The governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, I blocked it out. They all start saying, maybe MAGA's not the way to go. We don't need MAGA anymore. He proved it. He lost in 2020. We lost in 2022. And now we lost in 2024. We gotta rethink things, guys. I guess Bill Kristol and Michael Medved, they were right. Trump's a disaster. And they just want to move on, just like they did in 2020. We'll get him next time, guys. We'll get him next time. We'll all write books about it. We'll all find part-time jobs in D.C. until 2028, and then we'll all back DeSantis, and then we'll all get jobs in the swamp again. Maybe we'll start some wars while we're at it. Maybe we'll get some lower taxes for rich people while we're at it. Maybe we'll let in some more illegal immigrants. I don't have a nanny. I don't have a somebody to clean my house. I don't have cheap labor for the new concrete pad I want put in my backyard. Let's say all that happens. There's going to be idiots, and I mean idiots, on our side calling for a civil war. People already said that. Oh, if Trump had been assassinated, it would have been a civil war. Why? Why does that lead to assassinate or to civil war? One person gets assassinated and you start a civil war over it? What is that going to do anybody? What do you fight? What? Think about our actual civil war. Go read a book about it, or just watch a video about how it started. Why did Lincoln invade the South? Because the rebels fired the first shot. Because the Confederates did the violence first. He pushed them into a corner because he was a genius and they were dumb. And he pushed them into a corner, and they started the Civil War, and he labeled them rebels, and he never acknowledged that they seceded, because he didn't have the right to stop them from seceding, but he did have the right to put down a rebellion, so he just labeled them a rebellion. The same thing will happen if the idiots on our side spark some kind of violence, like, January 6th times 10, with a real armed rebellion. It won't do anyone any good. And it will, just like January 6th did, it will destroy any chance we have of fixing anything. Anyone who talked about election fraud after January 6th could have been labeled a rebel. Do you think any MAGA people are going to be able to they're going to have to distance themselves from any stupid rebellion that comes along. And then they'll have to say, no, I'm for the Republic. I'm for President Harris. If the Confederates had just worked out some kind of political deal, they could have prolonged their cause for a long time. Now, I'm not saying I wish they still had slavery and all that. I'm just talking strategically. If they had played ball with the federal government, they had so many tools with which to block everything that the Republicans wanted to do. The abolitionists weren't even in control of the Republican Party. They were a small part of the Republican Party. Kind of like the people who want no exceptions for abortion. They're a small part of the Republican Party. Those were like abolitionists in the old Republican Party. The rest of the party didn't care. I mean, they didn't like slavery, but they weren't going to ban it in the South. They were just going to ban it in the Western territories. But by the end, they abolished slavery. Completely. Because the stupid leaders of the South decided, hey, we're going to leave. We're going to leave and we're going to have our own 1776 moment. Idiots. Those guys were complete idiots, mainly because they were trying to conserve slavery or preserve slavery, but also because of the strategy that they used. Complete morons. Look, at the beginning of the Civil War, go read it. Lincoln's first inaugural, he says, look, I'll support a constitutional amendment that says we'll never ban slavery in the southern states if that's what you guys want. But see, that's not what they wanted, because they knew, or they thought anyway, that slavery would die out if it wasn't allowed to spread to the Western territories. So that wasn't acceptable to them. But think about, that's kind of an extreme position. Because that was their main fear, is that you'd have so many free states that they would amend the Constitution and ban slavery everywhere. Think if that was written into the Constitution. We might still have slavery in the southern states today. If it's written into the Constitution. That'd be crazy. So anyway, just think about how far things can go once the violence starts. Once people start getting killed, all bets are off, and people harden their positions, or they get more radical. Crazy stuff can happen. So once our side engages in violence, they can't fix what they want fixed through violence. It will either destroy the country or it will destroy our freedoms. Those are the only two options. Because the other side is in power. And you will turn them into Lincoln. Look, the Upper South, the whole Confederacy didn't secede at once. It was just the Deep South that seceded like right after Lincoln got elected. And then, I can't remember the timeline, somewhere like December, something like that. No. I think it was after Lincoln's inauguration and when he declared war on the South, basically, when the upper South, so like Virginia, Tennessee, Arkansas, I think North Carolina, they were waiting to see what happened. And once he declared war on the South, they bailed. They said, we're not in for this. We're not going to invade Georgia. This is crazy. And so that pushed them over the edge. And my point with that is, I don't remember what my point with that is. It'll come to me maybe. Once the South started violence, any legitimacy that they had, no one listened to them anymore. That's not 100% true because it looked like maybe France and England were going to come in on the side of the South until Lincoln turned it into a war about slavery. He's such a genius. They hated him so much. But see, my point is, I don't think they have a Lincoln anywhere in their ranks. But they do have smart, sneaky people like Nancy Pelosi. What a snake she is. Right? You know why they use the words insurrection the day after January 6th instead of riot? Because they intended to use the 14th Amendment. Because it says right in there, anybody who engaged in insurrection against the United States government can't hold political office ever again. And there's still some clowns in Congress who are going to try to use that against Trump if he wins. They're going to stand up on whatever, if it's January 6th again, whenever Congress counts the votes and say, he can't be the president because he participated in a rebellion against the United States on January 6th. They're going to try and pull that crap. So they have smart people. They have some real snakes. They're communists, and communists are pretty smart. They don't know how to make anything that works, but they know how to do politics. They know how to gaslight. They know how to frame their opponents in the ways that they don't want to be framed. Look what they did with the Tea Party. They successfully labeled that a racist movement. There was nothing racist about it. It was about taxes. It was about taxes and spending. That's all it was. It wasn't a revolt against Obama. It was a revolt against spending $1 trillion to bail us out of the Great Recession, which was a complete boondoggle. That's what it was. And yeah, Obama's a communist. So it was about that too. I couldn't believe it when they pulled that off. I went to a small little Tea Party rally. Maybe 100 people there. Some kid, some homeschool kid, got up and gave a speech about the founding fathers. Some dude trying to sound like a radio host got up and gave a speech about how stupid Bush was and how stupid Obama is. It wasn't a racist movement. I couldn't believe that they got away with that. So I don't know what all these people talking about Civil War are talking about. Are they just talking about people spraying their machine guns at the White House? Are they talking about taking over government buildings? Secession? I've never heard anyone talking about that. What are they talking about? What would a civil war even look like? I haven't seen that stupid movie that I think is just programming. Well, what I have heard is just ridiculous that Texas and California would join forces. Over what? They don't have anything in common. So, Just think it through. Let's say in these people's wildest dreams that their National Guard sides with them against the federal government and says, this is an illegitimate election. Okay, let's say 10 state National Guards. Oh, all right. What's that? Couple 100,000 soldiers? If that, I mean, I don't even know how big these National Guards are. And do you really think 100% of the National Guard is going to side with some rebellion? And what's going to be the goals of this rebellion? You have to have ways of winning. Is this going to be like Hitler declaring war on the United States, where it's like, well, I can't win, but we're going to war anyway? You have to have a chance of winning before you roll the dice on something like this. This is complete madness. Okay, so let's say you get 10 National Guards. We're ready to go to war. What are you going to do? Assassinate people? Yeah, that's going to work. That's going to win you a lot of support, causing chaos. Wow. What's that going to do? It's just going to turn you into rebels. And at least the Confederacy voted to get out. All of their state legislatures voted to get out of the Union, the same way that they voted to get into the Union. That's much more legitimate than just having a spasm and shooting some people. These people wouldn't have any of the apparatus of the federal government. Maybe if they hijacked their state governments, or if their governor's all on board or something. Yeah, you're going to put the bureaucracy and the ability to get things done with like some southern states against the federal government. You don't have the financing. You don't have the banks. You don't have Wall Street. You don't have the UN. You don't have NATO. Look what they did to Russia to cripple it. I mean, I know it's not crippled, but they just went to India and China. Who are you going to go to? You're screwed. It will be like the truckers in Canada, that little whatever that was that they did, protest. It'll be like that on steroids. That's all it'll be. And it'll be actually violent. They weren't violent. They were just annoying to the government. If you mount some kind of stupid, violent rebellion, it won't go anywhere. Look, remember when Biden was trying to label MAGA as white supremacy? White supremacy is the biggest threat. They're just calling you terrorists by saying that. They're just prepping the area, the battle space, whatever, so they can call you all terrorists. And they know how to fight Al-Qaeda. They have all the systems in place to fight terrorists. We can't fight Russia. We can't fight China. I think we would lose a ground war against them. Who knows? But they know how to fight terrorists. They have all the apparatus in place for that. So the two outcomes are some dumb rebellion would get crushed, or it would just break the country in two. The most successful, in quotes, thing that could happen, or the most success that it could have, is that it would destroy the country. And it probably wouldn't even break it in two. It would probably shatter it. And it would be like the Middle Ages in the United States, where you have warlords. And even if you don't have warlords, all the states, if they still existed, would just break up and maybe form little like coalitions or something. But a lot of these states have never even existed outside of the framework of the United States. So if you get rid of the United States, who's going to be loyal to their states? These are just kind of made up things that are part of the United States. I don't think a lot of people have a lot of allegiance to their state outside of Texas. You know, who knows? Maybe they would form something from Texas to Florida. That's a nightmare scenario, because what's going to happen to the rest of the country? And what's going to happen to those states? That is not a recipe for success. There might be something salvaged out of it, but the best case scenario, the very best case scenario, would be something like Charlemagne's empire, which was just a shadow of what the Roman Empire was. You really want that? I don't. This is not 1776. It's more like 1861, which was a huge mistake. And in 1861 wasn't just a mistake because they were trying to save slavery, which is what they were trying to do, but because it never had a chance to work. It was stupid. Strategically, it was stupid. But you had all the same types of idiots. Yeah. All these tough guys. We're going to go to war and kick their ass. Yeah. No, you're not. No, you're not. Do you think you're bigger tough guys than the guys in the Confederacy? That was probably the best army in modern times for what it had. Now, I'm not saying like it would have beat the Nazis in World War II. I'm saying if you gave the Confederacy the same stuff that the Nazis had, they would have been just as good as the Nazis. They had excellent leadership. They were very motivated. Their soldiers put up with a ton of crap. They won when they shouldn't have won. They were an excellent army. And they were only beaten because the United States was willing to spend so many people to beat them. If the United States wasn't united behind Lincoln and just slugging that thing out, there's no way. I mean, do you really think another country could have beaten them other than the United States? There's no way. The only country that could have beaten them was the United States because it was so big and it had such a big economy and it was right next door. There's no way the British Empire could have beaten them because they would have had to ship everyone over here. Do you really think MAGA, when it's up in arms, would be as potent as the Confederacy? No way. And you know, maybe you'll say, well, the United States is not what the United States was in 1861. You really think it's less of a powerhouse than it was in 1861? You think the federal government is less strong? You think the federal military is less strong? You think the people would be as united against some kind of dumb rebellion as they were in the South? I don't think so. At best, you'll have like 20% of the population who's down for this. And the rest will just be like, dude, what are you talking about? We lost an election. Yeah, this is rough, but this is insane. And they'll just side with the people who are trying to put you down and calling you terrorists, which is pretty much what you would be. I'm pretty sure I would have to be on their side and say, look, as much as I hate President Harris, you guys are rebels. You're not trying to save the Constitution. You're trying to destroy the country. Think if people revolted the last time when they stole an election from Trump. Think where we would be today. Just play it out. Look what they did for that riot at the Capitol. They blew it way out of proportion. They called it an armed insurrection, which is complete nonsense. They set up the inauguration like it was like a staged movie. They had all these machine guns. And it's so stupid. There was no rebel movement gonna storm the... So stupid. But they're good at this stuff. They're good at theater. That's all they're good at. They're not good at governing. But they made it look like DC was under siege. It wasn't under siege. They would go completely insane if there was some kind of actual rebellion. And the thing is, they would kind of be justified. We are all up against lying, gaslighting Bolsheviks who will do anything to stay in power. They'll do anything to make their opponents look like the bad guys. They're masters at it. But you can't fall into their trap. This is exactly what they want, is for you to rise up and fight. It will give them an excuse to take away all our guns. It will give them an excuse to arrest Elon and arrest Trump and arrest everyone else. They will take advantage of it. Like they said, that's what communists do. We got to take advantage of the crisis. If you create a crisis, they will use it. Just like the Nazis used the Reichstag fire. You can't give them that chance. Talking about civil war is like talking about nuclear war. It's completely insane. It's the end of the country. Look, the rebels never win. Rebels don't win revolutions. You don't go up against governments and win. Look, the only reason we won our revolution, there's basically 3 reasons. They were an ocean away, which back then was like a month away. One way. So if you wanted to get news to Britain and back, took like 2 months, 6 weeks. That's a long ways away. We weren't fighting our own government. We were fighting the imperial government. Think if all the governments of all the colonies weren't down for the revolution. Do you think the revolution could have worked? No. Could Washington have had a chance of holding a rebellion together if all the militias were hunting him down? No. The second reason, their generals didn't fight very well. They weren't ruthless. They basically lost the war for the British. They kind of didn't have their hearts in it, kind of like our generals didn't fight the Confederacy very hard. And France helped us. If France didn't help us, probably we couldn't have won the war. So we really shouldn't have won that war. But a lot of things broke in our favor. So do you really think if you go up against the United States government in some harebrained, insane, violent spasm, that they're not just going to bring the government down on you like a sledgehammer? They will. Look, I'm not saying Americans never have the right to fight. I'm just saying once you do, it will end the country. When you do that, you're basically saying this government isn't working anymore, but we're not going to let it take our rights away. And we're going to fight it and basically destroy it and create a new one. Because the election system where we pick people to fix the government isn't working. You're not going to fix an election through violence. And you might say, well, the country's already screwed. And no, it's not. It's not. Look how many things still work. Look how much influence we still have. People still listen to us. They still want to win elections. I know it's messed up. I know there's problems. Countries always have problems, especially democracies. Just think about the destruction that would happen. All the lives that are lost, all the scared kids, all the dislocation that would happen, all the people who would starve. It would be such a disaster. This is just insane. It would be so much more of a disaster than the original Civil War, or than like the war in Ukraine, because it would be like an all-out thing all across the country. And who knows? Somebody might use nukes. They might use chemical weapons. They might get... Who knows what will happen? People get desperate in wars, especially the longer that they go on. It's not a movie where it's all wrapped up and then, well, that was it. We had some rough times, but it turned out okay. That's not real. Grow up. That's not how it would actually go. One of the problems is we have all these people sitting around, well, I'm going to go do some violence in the name of liberty, right? But they won't do anything in between elections. They won't go get a petition signed. They won't do what Charlie Kirk is doing, try and get people registered to vote. They won't make a phone call to their congressman. Oh, that doesn't work. But starting a civil war works. January 6th worked. Use the system that we have before you throw it away and start some stupid rebellion because it feels good. That is stupid. By the time our revolution, the violent part of it came along, we'd pretty much done the peaceful revolution already in our state governments. We had already tried for 15 years to tell Parliament, hey, this isn't working. Stop putting all these taxes on us. Stop trying to tell us what to do. That's really what it was about, not just the taxes. Stop telling us what to do. We have our own governments. That's really what the rebellion, what the revolution was about. Jefferson said the people will suffer while evils are sufferable, and only revolt after a long train of abuses shows that they are headed to despotism. We're not there yet. I hope we don't get there. Think about this. Have they occupied Boston, suspended its government, cut off its trade, brought in federal troops to occupy the city, quartered troops in houses? Have they stopped our state legislatures from meeting? No. They haven't done anything like that yet. I know, COVID and the lockdowns. All right. I'm not saying there's no problems. Just saying we're not there yet. And some people argue that the founders weren't even there yet. I don't know if I'd go that far. But once you cross that Rubicon, there might not be any going back, and it's just going to be a total disaster. We've had stolen elections before, mostly local and state elections. It happens. We've had corrupt politicians before. We've had corrupt systems. Go Google Tammany Hall. Right after the Civil War, the period between the Civil War and 1900, our politics was so corrupt, and then we kind of fixed it. It's one of the reasons which one of the presidents got assassinated. Can't remember off the top of my head. But he was an anti-corruption guy. And part of the reason he got assassinated was because he didn't want politicians to be bought off anymore. He didn't want the spoils system in the government. And some dirty, people buying off politicians didn't want that. So they shot him. So the solution is to get more involved. Take back our cities politically. Take back the state houses. Push through laws that make your state the way you want it to be. And then also take back DC. Stop talking about stupid rebellions and civil war. It will only end in disaster. And regular people like me can't go with you there. Down the road, if it's the only thing left that we have to stay a free people, all right, okay. Right now, that's just complete insanity. and you will play right into their hands. The globalists, the communists who are in the government, the crazies, all the idiots that are against us. That's exactly what they want, is for the American people to lash out in a spasm of violence. If you hear people talking about it, raise your voice and say, this is crazy talk. Stop it. Thank you for listening.